The champagne glasses clinked as Emma finished her toast, tears streaming down her face. "And to my parents, who taught me that love never truly dies, it just changes form." She looked at her father Michael, who was desperately avoiding the gaze of her mother Diane across the reception hall. The secret he'd kept for 3 years was about to come to light, and not even his daughter's wedding day could stop the truth from finally breaking free. If you're touched by this story of sacrifice and forgiveness, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more heartwarming real-life stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Michael Sullivan stared at the hospital bill in his hands, the numbers blurring as he blinked back tears. 3 years of secretly paying his ex-wife's medical expenses had drained his savings, forced him to take a second job, and postponed his retirement indefinitely. But he'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Diane might have left him 15 years ago, but she was still the mother of his daughter. And some bonds, he believed, transcended even the bitterest of divorces. He folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his wallet beside the photo of Emma in her cap and gown. His beautiful, brilliant daughter was getting married tomorrow, and nothing, not even the weight of his secret, would dim the joy of that day. He checked his watch. The rehearsal dinner started in an hour, and he still needed to pick up his tuxedo. Across town, Diane Matthews sat at her vanity, applying concealer to hide the lingering fatigue around her eyes. The cancer had been in remission for almost 2 years now, but the fear never truly left. Every checkup brought the same anxiety, the same dread that the disease might return. She'd survived, though she still didn't understand how she'd managed to afford the treatments. Her insurance had covered only a fraction of the costs, and her modest teacher's salary couldn't possibly have stretched to cover the rest. Yet somehow, the bills had been paid. Her financial advisor had called it a clerical error when she'd inquired. The hospital had insisted everything was in order. Eventually, she'd stopped questioning her good fortune, choosing instead to focus on recovery and on being present for her daughter's upcoming wedding. Diane applied a touch of lipstick and smiled at her reflection. Tomorrow, her only child would be married. Nothing else mattered. The rehearsal dinner was a blur of faces and congratulations. Michael kept his distance from Diane, as they had done at every shared event since the divorce. They'd mastered the art of polite coexistence for Emma's sake, exchanging pleasantries when necessary but never lingering in conversation. Tonight was no different, though Michael found himself watching Diane more than usual. She looked healthy, vibrant, even. The treatments had worked. That was all that mattered. "Dad, are you okay?" Emma appeared at his side, radiant in her pre-wedding glow. "Never better, sweetheart." He squeezed her hand. "Just thinking about how proud I am of you. You've been quiet tonight." She studied his face with the same intensity she'd had since childhood, always able to sense when something was troubling him. "Just emotional about tomorrow. My little girl, all grown up." Emma smiled, but her eyes remained concerned. "You know, it's okay if you and Mom actually talk to each other. The divorce was a long time ago." Michael chuckled. "Some habits are hard to break, Em. But don't worry about us. Tomorrow is your day." As Emma moved away to greet more guests, Michael caught Diane looking in his direction. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the room. She nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement they'd perfected over the years. He returned the nod, ignoring the familiar ache in his chest. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. Michael stood in his hotel room, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. The weight of the secret felt heavier today. For 3 years, he'd managed to keep Diane from discovering that he was the one paying her medical bills. He'd set up an anonymous payment system through his lawyer, sworn to secrecy by attorney-client privilege. Not even Emma knew. Especially not Emma. He hadn't wanted his daughter to worry about her mother's health or her father's finances while she was finishing graduate school. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His brother James entered, already dressed in his groomsman's attire. "Ready to walk your daughter down the aisle?" James asked, clapping him on the shoulder. "As ready as I'll ever be," Michael replied. "You look stressed. Wedding day jitters by proxy?" Michael forced a smile. "Something like that." James studied him for a moment. "This wouldn't have anything to do with those hospital bills you've been paying, would it?" Michael froze. "How did you? I'm your financial advisor, remember? Did you think I wouldn't notice the regular withdrawals? Or the second mortgage on your house? Does Emma know?" James shook his head. "Of course not. But Mike, it's been 3 years. Don't you think it's time Diane knew the truth?" "No," Michael said firmly. "She doesn't need to know. It would just complicate things." "Complicate what?" "You've been divorced for 15 years. "Exactly. We have separate lives now. I didn't do this to win her back or to make her feel indebted to me. I did it because—" He trailed off. "Because you still care about her," James finished softly. Michael didn't respond. He didn't need to. Across the venue, Diane sat still as the makeup artist applied the finishing touches. Her sister Rebecca watched from the corner, sipping champagne. "You look beautiful," Rebecca said. "Emma is going to cry when she sees you." "I'm the one who's going to cry," Diane admitted. "I can't believe my baby is getting married." "Speaking of Emma," Rebecca said carefully, "she mentioned something interesting yesterday." "Oh?" "She said Michael's been working 2 jobs for the past few years. Apparently, he's had some financial troubles." Diane frowned. "That doesn't sound like Michael. He was always so careful with money." "That's what I thought. But Emma said he took a second mortgage on the house about 3 years ago." 3 years ago. The timing nagged at Diane. That was when she'd been diagnosed. When the bills had started piling up, only to mysteriously disappear. "Rebecca," she said slowly, "you don't think—" Her sister raised an eyebrow. "What?" But Diane was already shaking her head. "Nothing. It's a crazy thought." The ceremony was everything Emma had dreamed of. Michael fought back tears as he walked his daughter down the aisle, stealing a glance at Diane in the front row. She looked stunning in pale blue, her eyes fixed on their daughter. For a moment, he was transported back 28 years, to the day Emma was born. They had been so young, so in love, so certain their happiness would last forever. Life had other plans. The arguments had started small, disagreements about work hours, parenting styles, household responsibilities. By the time Emma was 12, the marriage had fractured beyond repair. The divorce had been amicable on paper but devastating in reality. They'd both moved on eventually. Diane had briefly remarried and divorced again. Michael had dated but never found anyone who measured up to what he and Diane had once shared. Now, watching his daughter exchange vows with the love of her life, Michael felt a bittersweet pang. Emma had found what he and Diane had lost. He prayed her marriage would be stronger than theirs had been. The reception was in full swing when Emma approached her father at the bar. "Dad, can we talk for a minute?" Her expression was serious despite the joyous occasion. "Of course, sweetheart." He followed her to a quiet corner of the venue. "I found something in your study last week when I was looking for those old family photos for the slideshow." She reached into a hidden pocket in her wedding dress and pulled out a folded paper. "It's a hospital bill. Mom's hospital bill." Michael's heart sank. "Emma. You've been paying them, haven't you? All this time. That's why you've been working so much, why you never take vacations, why you're still living in that old house that needs so many repairs." He couldn't lie to her. "Not today." "Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Or Mom?" "I didn't want either of you to worry. You were finishing your degree, and your mother needed to focus on getting better." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But Dad, it must have been such a burden. It wasn't a burden, he said firmly. It was a choice. Your mother gave me the greatest gift of my life, you. Helping her when she needed it most was the least I could do. Emma hugged him tightly. You're a good man, Dad. But Mom deserves to know. She's been wondering for years how those bills got paid. Michael pulled back, alarmed. Emma, no. Please don't tell her. It would just make things awkward between us, and we've finally reached a place where we can be in the same room without tension. I think you underestimate her, Emma said softly. And I think you underestimate yourself. Before Michael could respond, the wedding planner appeared, ushering Emma away for the cake cutting. He watched her go, a sense of dread settling in his stomach. The cake had been cut, the first dances completed. Michael was contemplating a quiet exit when Emma clinked her glass, calling for attention. She stood in the center of the dance floor, her new husband by her side. I want to thank everyone for sharing this special day with us, she began. But there's something I need to say before the night ends. Her eyes found Michael in the crowd, and he knew immediately what was coming. My parents divorced when I was 12, and like many children of divorce, I spent years hoping they would find their way back to each other. Eventually, I accepted that wasn't going to happen. But what I've learned recently has shown me that love doesn't always look the way we expect it to. The room had fallen silent. Michael could feel Diane's gaze on him from across the room. 3 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, Emma continued. What none of us knew until recently was that my father has been anonymously paying her medical bills all this time. He took a second job, mortgaged his house, and postponed his retirement, all to help the woman he divorced 15 years ago. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Michael kept his eyes fixed on his shoes, unable to look up. Dad, Emma said, her voice thick with emotion, would you please come up here? Reluctantly, Michael made his way to the dance floor. Emma took his hand and then gestured to Diane. Mom, you too. Diane approached slowly, her expression unreadable. When she reached them, Emma placed her mother's hand in her father's. I'm not asking you to get back together, she said with a small smile. I outgrew that fantasy a long time ago. But I am asking you both to acknowledge the bond that still exists between you, a bond that goes beyond your marriage, beyond your divorce, beyond even your love for me. With that, she stepped back, leaving Michael and Diane facing each other, hands joined, surrounded by wedding guests. Is it true? Diane asked quietly. Michael nodded, unable to find words. Why? He finally met her eyes. Because you needed help, and I could give it. It's as simple as that. It's not simple at all, she whispered. You sacrificed so much. It wasn't a sacrifice, he insisted. It was the right thing to do. Diane's eyes filled with tears. All these years, I thought it was some administrative error. I even worried it might be illegal somehow, that someday they'd discover the mistake and I'd have to pay it all back. You never have to worry about that, Michael assured her. It's all taken care of. The band began to play softly in the background, a slow melody that seemed to wrap around them like a cocoon. May I have this dance? Michael asked, surprising himself. Diane hesitated only briefly before nodding. Yes. As they moved slowly across the dance floor, the years seemed to fall away. They weren't ex-spouses with a complicated history, they were simply two people who had once loved each other deeply, who had created a beautiful daughter together, who had found a way to honor their shared past despite the pain of their separation. I don't know how to thank you, Diane said as they danced. You don't need to thank me, Michael replied. Seeing you healthy, seeing you here for Emma's wedding, that's all the thanks I need. We've wasted so many years being distant with each other, she said thoughtfully. Maybe it's time for that to change. Michael looked at her, careful not to hope for too much. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting we get back together, she clarified. But maybe we could be friends? Real friends, not just polite acquaintances who tolerate each other at family gatherings. He smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. I'd like that. From across the room, Emma watched her parents dance, tears of joy streaming down her face. Her new husband wrapped an arm around her waist. "Are you playing matchmaker on our wedding day?" he teased gently. Emma shook her head. "No. I'm just helping them find peace with their past so they can both move forward. Whatever that looks like for them." As the song ended, Michael and Diane separated, but something had shifted between them. The wall that had stood for 15 years hadn't come down entirely, but a door had opened, a door to new possibilities, to healing, to forgiveness. Later that night, as the reception wound down, Michael found himself sitting at a table with Diane, sharing a piece of wedding cake. "I still can't believe you did that for me," she said, shaking her head in wonder. "I would do it again," he said simply. "I know you would. That's who you've always been." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "I'm sorry our marriage didn't work out, Michael. We were so young, so stubborn. We both made mistakes," he acknowledged. "But we got something right." He nodded toward Emma, who was saying goodbye to guests with her husband. "Yes, we did." Diane smiled. "She's the best of both of us." "She is." Michael hesitated, then added, "I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about being friends. I'd like to start by inviting you to dinner next week. Nothing romantic, just two old friends catching up." Diane's smile widened. "I'd like that." As the evening came to a close, Emma approached her parents one last time before leaving for her honeymoon. "Thank you both for everything," she said, embracing them together. "This was the perfect day." "It really was," Diane agreed, exchanging a meaningful glance with Michael. After Emma and her husband departed amid a shower of rose petals, Michael offered to walk Diane to her car. "You know," she said as they strolled through the parking lot, "when I was sick, I used to wonder why I was being given a second chance at life. What was I supposed to do with it? Now I think maybe this is part of the answer, making peace with the past, rebuilding broken connections." "Maybe so," Michael replied. "Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe we're just two people who share a history and a daughter, finding a new way to be in each other's lives." They reached her car, and Diane turned to face him. "Either way, I'm grateful. Not just for the bills you paid, but for showing me that love can evolve into something different but still meaningful." "I'm grateful too," Michael said. "For today, for Emma, for the chance to start over, as friends." As Diane drove away, Michael stood in the parking lot, watching her taillights disappear into the night. The secret he'd kept for 3 years had finally come to light, but instead of the awkwardness he'd feared, it had brought an unexpected gift, the possibility of reconciliation, not as husband and wife, but as two people who had once loved each other deeply and who might, in time, find their way back to a different kind of love, one built on forgiveness, understanding, and the shared joy of seeing their daughter happy. The weight he'd carried for so long had lifted, replaced by something lighter, something hopeful. Tomorrow would bring a new beginning, not just for Emma and her husband, but perhaps for him and Diane as well. And for the first time in 15 years, Michael Sullivan looked forward to that beginning with an open heart. If this story of selfless love and second chances touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring real-life stories that remind us of the enduring power of human connection. Sometimes the greatest acts of love are the ones done in silence, expecting nothing in return.